Mahabharata, Chapter 14, Arjun's 12-year exile, read by Nirvan Bajaj and Ekveer Bajaj. Mahabharata, Chapter 14, Arjun's 12-year exile. Arjun and the Brahmins who accompanied him decided, O monarch, to camp near the source of Ganga. The Brahmins propitiated Agni with sacrificial offerings, and the blazing sacrificial fires and chants and offerings of flowers made the region exceedingly beautiful. One day, in preparation for the sacrificial ritual, Arjun bathed in the Ganga. As he was about to finish bathing, he was pulled by Ulupi, the daughter of the king of Nagas, down to the bed of the river and into the beautiful mansion of her father. There he saw a sacrificial fire already ablaze. Beholding that fire, Arjun completed his sacrifice to Agni, and Agni was pleased by his devotion. Then, beholding Ulupi, Arjun smiled and said to her, O charming girl, your action was rash. Which is this land, and whose daughter are you? Ulupi told him who she was, and then said, O prince, when I saw you, I came under the spell of Kamadev. I am still unwed. Please give yourself up to me. Arjun replied, Commanded by Yudhishthira, I am undergoing the vow of Brahmacharya for 12 years. I am not free to act as I like. Ulupi said, I know of your brother's command and of your exile, but the order of exile has reference to Draupadi, and therefore here there is no moral lapse. I come to you. Accept me. The wise approve of this. If you do not, be certain that I will be dead. Thus, addressed by Ulupi, Arjun in all propriety fulfilled her wish and stayed in the mansion that day and night. Then, led by her, he returned to the banks of Ganga, and Ulupi conferred a boon on him, saying, Denizens of the water will always obey you. You will be invincible in water. Then, taking her leave of him, Ulupi returned to her own abode, and Arjun, turning to the Brahmins, informed them all of what had happened. Then, accompanied by them, he set out for the Himalayas. He visited the sites consecrated by Agastya, by Vasistha, and by Bhrigu. Then, descending from those heights, he journeyed towards the east to behold the regions that lay in that direction. He visited all the sacred spots of Anga, Vanga, and Kalinga. The Brahmins accompanying him bade him farewell, and Arjun came to the Mahindra mountains, and then went to Manipur, walking leisurely among the seashore. And visiting all the sacred places in that land, he called on its ruler. Then, accidentally, he saw Chitrangada, the ruler's daughter, and he was filled with desire for her. And he said to the ruler, Give away your daughter to me, O king. I am a noble Kshatriya. I am Arjun, the son of Pandu and Kunti.
O Arjun, I have only this maiden to perpetuate my line. I look upon her as my son. Therefore, the son begotten of you on her shall be the progeny of my line. That son shall be the bride price you pay. On this condition, O Pandav, you may wed her.
Arjun accepted, saying, So be it. And he spent the next 3 years at Chitrangada in that city. And after a son was born to her, he set out on his wanderings again. He went towards the southern seas to the regions adorned by the rishis living there. 5 sacred spots were, however, shunned by all of them. Arjun then asked one of the rishis, Why are these 5 sacred spots shunned by the enlightened ones? They replied, Each of these water spots has a crocodile which drags upon the rishi, down the rishis who enter it. Therefore are they shunned. Then Arjun, though dissuaded by them, went up to the river and plunged into it. As soon as he did so, O monarch, a huge crocodile seized him by his leg. But the mighty Arjun caught the writhing crocodile and dragged it onto the land. But, O monarch, when it touched the land, it turned into a pretty, bejeweled woman. And amazed, Arjun asked her, "Who are you, O pretty woman?" She replied, "I am an Apsara. My 4 companions and I were cursed by a bright Brahman when we tried in vain to divert him from his steadfast meditation. In anger, he said,
'You shall be turned into crocodiles and live thus for the next 100 years. At the end of that period, a great man will lift you up from the water, and then you will regain your earlier forms.'
You have been my deliverance. My 4 companions are still out there in those water spots. Liberate them also." Arjun, O monarch, delivered all of them from their curse and let them go wherever they chose. Then, intent on meeting Chitrangada, he proceeded to Manipur. There he beheld Babruvan, the son he had begotten with Chitrangada, and whom he ceremonially presented to the king, saying, "Accept this son begotten of me on Chitrangada and free me of my debts." Taking leave of Chitrangada, O monarch, Arjun proceeded towards Gokarna. Then, visiting one after another the sacred spots on the shores of the western ocean, he reached Prabhasa. Krishna heard of his arrival and went to greet his friend. And after Arjun narrated in detail the events of his travel, they set out in a golden chariot for Dwarka, the capital of the Yadavs. And, O Janamjay, the city of Dwarka, with its houses and gardens, was gaily decorated in honor of Arjun's visit. And the citizens of Dwarka thronged the royal part to see the son of Kunti. Arjun, who was received by the Yadavs, arrived at the palace of Krishna, which was encrusted with gems. And he stayed there with Krishna for many days. Now was held the festival of the Yadavs on the Revatak mountain, adorned with bejeweled dwellings among abundant trees. Musicians, singers and dancers performed there. The citizens, some on foot, some in carriages with their wives and their attendants, were there in their thousands. And while Krishna and Arjun strolled together among the wondrous sights there, they saw Subhadra, the daughter of Vasudev, amidst her friends, and Arjun was smitten by Kamadev. Krishna observed Arjun and said with a smile, "A recluse of the forest agitated by Kamadev. That is my sister, and she is the favorite of our father." Arjun said, "She is irresistibly beautiful. If this sister of yours becomes my wife, all prosperity will be mine." Krishna said, "If that is where your thought is, then I shall speak to my father myself." Then Arjun said, "Tell me, O Krishna, the means by which I may win her. I shall do everything humanly possible." Krishna replied, "Swayamvar is the marriage ordained for Kshatriyas, but there is uncertainty in it. However, in matters of marriage, abduction by a bold Kshatriya is also approved by the learned. Therefore, Arjun, carry away my sister by force. Who knows what her choice will be at the Swayamvar." Then Krishna and Arjun decided what was to be done and sent fast messengers to Yudhishthira, and Yudhishthira gave his consent. When it transpired that Subhadra had gone to Revataka, Arjun, guided by Krishna, decided on the next course of action. He set out as if for a hunt in Krishna's golden chariot, which was full with every weapon and equipped with the steeds, Shaiba and Sugriva, and which rumbled like thunder while on its course. Meanwhile, Subhadra, having worshipped the Revatka mountain and the deities there, was returning to Dwarka. Arjun then rushed towards that maiden of perfect features, forcibly carried her into his chariot, and proceeded towards his own city, Indraprastha. The warriors saw Subhadra being carried away, ran towards Dwarka, shrieking and shouting. They reached the Yadav court and informed their chief of Arjun's boldness. He listened to their tale and blew his golden trumpet of immense blare, summoning all to arms. Agitated by that sound, the valiant men of the clan left their meals half-eaten, their drinks unfinished, and rushed in from all sides. Those valiant men took their seats in the gilded thrones, covered with rich carpets and decked with precious gems. When they were seated, O monarch, the chief narrated the doings of Arjun. And the valiant Yadav men, their eyes red from drinking wine, sprang up from their seats, raging against Arjun.
Look our chariots! Where are the bulls? Bring forth our weapons!
There was a veritable tumult as they brought their chariots, and some, impatient, yoked their horses themselves to their chariots. Then Balram, clad in blue robes and adorned with garlands of flowers, intoxicated and there erect like the great Kailasa, said, "What are you witless men doing when Krishna sits silent? Without knowing his mind, this outburst of anger is to no purpose. Let wise Krishna express his opinion, that let his will be done promptly." All of them listened to the worthy words of Balram and became silent and went back to their seats. After a minute, Balram then spoke to Krishna. "You have witnessed all this and yet you are silent. Kunti's son was welcomed by us because of you, but the treacherous wretch deserved not the honor. He has insulted us and you by abducting Subhadra. Will anyone proud of his noble birth speak the plate he has dined off? How shall I tolerate this kick? Never shall I tolerate this transgression of Arjun. All by myself I shall exterminate him from the world." All the Yadavs, O monarch, supported the thundering words of Balram, and as they bragged about the retaliation, Krishna uttered these words full of sense and propriety. "This alliance is right. Subhadra is noble and so is Arjun. His action bespeaks not so much of insult as appreciation of our race. Who would not be honored by kinship with the descendant of Bharat and the son of Kunti Bhoj's daughter? Which valiant man would wait for a maiden to be donated like an animal, and who on earth would sell his offsprings? Arjun knows we are not mercenary. He knows also the uncertainties of a Swayamvar. I think he has considered all these questions before he took away the maiden by force, which is in keeping with law. And I do not see anyone in all the world save Shiva who can conquer Arjun. If Arjun goes back to his city after defeating you by force, then you will lose all your reputation. There is no disgrace, however, in a peaceful accord. Go after him and bring him back in a peaceful manner." The Yadavs, O monarch, listened to the words of the wise Krishna and acted accordingly. Halted by them, Arjun returned to Dwarka and was united in marriage with Subhadra. Cherished by the Yadavs, Arjun spent a year in Dwarka, and then in the last year of his exile he stayed in the sacred spot of Pushkara. And after the 12 years were completed, he came back to Indraprastha. And he paid his respects to the king first, and then went to Draupadi, who in jealousy said to him,
"Go back to where Subhadra is. A second knot is bound to loosen the first one, howsoever close it might have been."
And Draupadi wailed in this manner while Arjun consoled her and sought pardon repeatedly. Then Arjun returned hastily to Subhadra, who was draped in red silk, whispered something in her ear, and sent her into the woman's apartment. She was dressed not as a queen, but as one of the cowherdess. The noble Subhadra, however, looked more attractive in that dress. She first paid respect to Kunti, who bowed down her face in Subhadra's head in deep affection. Then that girl turned to Draupadi and bowed to her and said, "I am your maid." Draupadi embraced the sister of Krishna lovingly and said,
"Let your husband be without a rival."
And Subhadra, pleased in mind, said, "So be it." When Krishna heard that Arjun had reached Indraprastha, He went there with Balram and other Yadav noblemen. He also brought wedding gifts in penalty. Yudhishthira, when he heard of Krishna's visit, sent the twins out to receive him. And the Yadav procession entered the Indraprastha, which was bright with flags and festoons. They came into the city and then entered Yudhishthira's palace. Krishna gave much wealth to them and the wedding gifts sent by her kinsman to Subhadra. The valiant men of the Kuru and Yadav races passed many days together in pleasurable pursuits. Then the Yadavs, led by Balram, returned to the city of Dwarka, carrying with them the dazzling precious jewels presented to them by the great Gurus. Krishna remained in Indraprastha with Arjun and roamed the banks of the Yamuna, hunting deer and wild boar. In due course, Subhadra gave birth to a son of long arms, broad chest and wide eyes. Krishna arranged to have all the rituals done as soon as the child, who came to be called Abhimanyu, was born. Abhimanyu, who was equal to Krishna in courage, strength and from his earliest years, became the favorite of his father and uncles and Krishna. Draupadi too obtained 5 sons by her 5 husbands. Their rites, proper to infancy, childhood and adolescence, were done by Dhaumya as ordained. And the Pandavas were supremely happy with their sons of broad chest and celestial valor. And thus ends the 14th session of our rendering of Vaishampayan's recital of Vyasa's immortal Ityasa, the Mahabharata. Stay tuned for the next chapter, Mahabharata chapter 15, and it is called A Hall for Yudhishthira. Please subscribe to this channel, like, share and comment on this video. Thank you and Namaste.